This episode of On the Record is brought to you by Benzie.
Hello, I'm Hayden Lester of Lester Media, here at a AEM news conference during the Republican National Convention. Welcome to On the Record. Here's what is impacting the ag equipment industry this week.
Hurricane Beryl brought winds over 86 miles per hour and up to 10 to 15 inches of rain to parts of Texas earlier this month. Matagorda and Worden counties were two of the hardest hit counties from a crop standpoint, according to the Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service. Corey Bowen, AgriLife Extension Agriculture and Natural Resources Agent in Worden County, said they have extensive crop damage and ongoing damage. He added, "Nobody can remember a time when all 235,000 acres of crops were still in the field and susceptible to a hurricane or tropical storm." This was an early storm. Corn harvest had barely begun and only about 30% of the grain sorghum had been harvested, and all of our rice was still out there, along with soybeans and cotton. While time will tell on the full extent of the damage, he said most producers in the area are estimating 20 to 30% losses in corn. Some fields have plants leaning 45 degrees that could still be harvestable, but in other fields, the corn is lying flat. It's estimated 50% of the sorghum crop in those counties is damaged. Terry Levinka, president of Levinka Equipment in East Bernard, Texas, said farmers are trying to restart harvest now. He said, "I think the crop loss will be 15 to 100% for corn, rice, and cotton. I estimate this average to be 25%. The remaining sorghum loss is probably 40 to 100%. The forecast calls for more rain in the next several days, which could significantly increase the damage since a large portion of the crop is leaning or on the ground." This week's dealers on the move include Atlantic and Southern Equipment and Florida Coast Equipment. AGCO dealer Atlantic and Southern Equipment has acquired the operating assets of Bridges Equipment in Brinson, Georgia. Atlantic Southern now has 10 stores. Kubota dealer Florida Coast Equipment has acquired Polk Tractor Company in Winter Haven, Florida, and now has 14 stores across the state. Now here's Noah Newman with the latest from the Technology Corner.
Thank you very much, Kim. So a large drone dealer in Florida can no longer fly drones over 55 pounds after allegedly violating multiple FAA regulations. So here's what reportedly happened. An FAA official showed up to a training session being hosted by the drone dealer after seeing an advertisement for it online. And the official quickly found out that the pilot in command allegedly didn't have registration for the drone he was flying, and he was also flying it too close to a non-participating farmer. So for some perspective, we reached out to Adam Gittens. He's the president of Harlan, Iowa-based HTS Ag. They're also a drone dealer. And he says this case serves as a harsh reminder for dealers to make sure all their boxes are checked before operating drones.
Let me try and make an analogy here. What was happening, this person was driving a vehicle with no license plates on it. But not only did it not have license plates on it, it had never been registered. And when they got pulled over, they also did not have their driver's license with them. They did not have proof of insurance. They did not have their registration. And they were driving on the wrong side of the road. There was a whole bunch of small things that should be fairly simple and pretty easy to do that led to the action that the FAA took on it. Experience in working with the FAA, I've done that a few times. Their heart, their goal, and their desire is to educate people. They don't want to take action against people. I've seen them offer a tremendous amount of grace to people that just didn't know. But this is things that, especially as large of a company as this is things they should have known.
For more information on the case, we included a link in the article for this Technology Corner story on precisionfarmingdealer.com. In the Technology Corner, I'm Noah Newman. Back to you, Kim.
Thanks, Noah. The used equipment market continues to face challenges across all equipment types. In Stifel's July used equipment update, Managing Director Stanley Elliott said auction pricing trends for used equipment continued to face pressure in June given tough comps due to supply chain challenges and an overall tight equipment market last year. However, he adds, asking prices for used equipment are more mixed as some categories continue to see pricing growth and others are starting to follow auction pricing declines. Elliott said, "In our view, asking prices are a better reflection of trends for most of the used equipment market. Auction prices are important to monitor, though, as they often precede trends for asking prices. Auction prices for ag equipment are still down year over year in all equipment types except for combines, he said. According to Stifel's report, auction pricing for tractors over 300 horsepower are down 6.4% year over year. At this time a year ago, auction prices were up 10.1% year over year. In the 175 to 299 horsepower range, auction prices are down 7.6% year over year, and the 100 to 174 horsepower prices are down 3.6%. According to Stifel, auction pricing for used equipment tends to be the most volatile and forward-looking portion of the used equipment market. Elliott said, in their view, trends in the used equipment market often precede or glean additional visibility into trends on the new equipment side. According to Iron Solutions, the market hasn't yet reached the bottom of this downturn, and the timing of the market bottom will depend on the number of machines sent to auction over the next 12 to 18 months. Now here's Hayden Lessiter with an update on policies impacting equipment manufacturers.
Thanks, Kim. In the wake of the RNC taking place here in Milwaukee, Komatsu and the Association of Equipment Manufacturers held a press conference at the Komatsu South Harbor Milwaukee campus on July 15th. Komatsu North American CEO Rod Schrader, AEM Vice President Kate Fox, and AEM Senior Vice President Kip Eideberg were joined by 3 elected officials to discuss policymaking in the world of equipment manufacturing. The panelists included Ryan Steil, U.S. Representative for the 1st Congressional District of Wisconsin, Bill Hagerty, U.S. Senator from Tennessee, and Glenn Youngkin, Governor of Virginia. Starting things off, Schrader said, "We will need our elected officials to advance pro-manufacturing policies that strengthen American manufacturing, competitiveness, and national security. That's why we're here today, to hear from this very distinguished group of lawmakers about what should be done to unleash the full power of American equipment manufacturing." Youngkin emphasized Virginia's role in the manufacturing world, citing CNBC's #1 ranking of Virginia education and recent $5 billion in tax relief. He said there's been $74 billion in capital invested in Virginia. Hagerty focused on foreign investments and regulatory practices by the federal government. Hagerty said Tennessee's GDP and wage growth was below the national average and unemployment was higher than the average. Opening up direct foreign investment into Tennessee industries like manufacturing has allowed the state to soar in terms of economic growth. However, he also noted the threat regulatory practices can put on the manufacturing industry, saying, "The regulatory burden, the regulatory costs that we've seen just in the past 3.5 years. The regulations that agencies have added the present value of $1.6 trillion. 13.5% of the GDP of the manufacturing component of America is taken up by regulatory compliance. That is a tax that is unseen by the average American. It's significant, it's real, we have to address it." Steil was asked what the future holds for the equipment manufacturing industry in Wisconsin. Manufacturing contributes over $70 million to the state's economy yearly, about 20% of its economic output.
Because the policies both at the federal and the state level have real world consequences, in particular in the manufacturing space. So we could look at the Trump-Ryan tax cuts that had a huge impact that will be on the table as we look out to next year post-election. And in particular, if we think about 2 pieces of that, the R&D, tax credit, and accelerated depreciation.
He also emphasized education's role in the industry. He said there's not really a federal answer because each state, as we would all know, is very different on what those workforce needs are. When asked by Fox on how to decrease the negative impact taxes and regulations on the industry, Steil had this to say.
After Chevron deference has now been overruled, we as legislators, in particular in the Senate and the House, have a huge opportunity to right-size this. We've seen, for example, the EPA really run roughshod over congressional intent. The Supreme Court is finally shifting that back to elected officials to have a say in that matter. Grabbing that lifeline that the Supreme Court has given elected officials in the House and in the Senate is going to be absolutely essential as we go forward, because the burden that is placed on businesses from a regulatory standpoint is stifling. And in particular, in a period of time when inflation is high, when costs are going up and it's harder for families to afford the things that they need, we need to be focused in on Washington on policies that bring costs and inflation down. And the #1 focus of that should be right-sizing a lot of the regulatory state.
Overall, the speakers highlighted the importance of unity in the nation's politics, particularly after the attempted assassination of Donald Trump just days prior. Back to you, Kim.
Thanks, Hayden. This week's DataPoint is brought to you by the Dealership Mind Summit. Learn more at dealershipmindsummit.com. Cash renters and owner-operators adopt cover crops at rates higher than share renters. researchers with USDA's Economic Research Service explored whether adopting cover crops differed between farmers who owned the land they farmed and those who were renters, whether under a cash or share rent agreement. They found that owner-operated cotton fields had the highest rate of cover crop adoption for owned land, with 22% of owner-operator cotton fields having cover crops in 2019. Owner-operated fields nominally led cash-rented fields in cover cropping for cotton, corn, and sorghum, but trailed cash-rented fields for soybeans and barley. Owner-operated fields exceeded share-rented fields in cover crop adoption for all 5 commodity crops surveyed. As always, we welcome your feedback. You can send comments and story suggestions to kschmidt@lestermedia.com. Until next time, I'm Kim Schmidt. Thanks for joining us.